lot of problem solving is asking for help.
Yeah.
Or looking for help, you know?
It is, but you got to be careful because that can be a crux. Relying on resources versus being resourceful. Often, my employees will come to me and say, "Hey, I'm having this whatever challenge. What should I do about it?" And my response to them is what my process would be. I'd be like, "Well, to be honest, I'm gonna have to do the same thing you would have to do." And I will put it back on them, but give them the way I have thought about it, the way I would have to go about figuring out the solution.
Doesn't put them on their heels. That's smart. I like that. That's really cool.
Welcome to Processing Purpose, a business and lifestyle podcast committed to having honest conversations about the stuff in our lives that is often suppressed, ignored, or overlooked. We are two brothers from very different backgrounds, but with one common goal. From entrepreneurship to relationships, from hobbies to house projects, nothing is off limits as we process becoming the best version of ourselves in business and life.
We're back!
We're back and matching. I had to speak to it. I just had to say it. But we do
Unplanned.
we do look dapper. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with it.
The boots, at least we have different colored jeans on.
Honestly, if we had a uniform every day,
Yeah.
I think that would make
What would our daily uniform be?
be
Should we just lose everybody that's listening to the podcast right now? What would it be?
All I could think was Star Trek uniforms. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah, that's not going to fly.
Okay, don't do it. Halloween's coming. We're just in the mood.
Yeah.
Anyway, how are you?
I'm good. It's been a hot minute. It's been like, and we're not going to unpack all of that, but it's been
Right.
4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, and we've had some episodes where it's been like 3 days goes by.
Well, we had to
other
do that
episodes-
because we knew we had such a big break in front of us.
Yeah, totally. And so getting ahead of it does matter. But it's been a while. It's been about 6 weeks. And, you know, with the season of life we're in, there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in a 6 week period. And so all sorts of good things. And how has your 6 weeks been? I mean, what have you guys been up to?
Full.
Yeah.
I hate that answer. Full. Only because it just feels so like, oh, it's busy. So busy, man.
Yeah.
But it is. It's been full with soccer and dry land for skiing and travel. And,
Yeah.
I was in Tennessee, and then I was in Dallas, and then I was in San Diego, and I was all over the place. You were all over the place.
Yeah, we were on the move.
International. But anyways, that's not why people are listening to us.
Well, let me ask you this question, though. I think it's important for everybody to set a rhythm in their life that they're happy with and they're excited about. And I say rhythm because I don't think balance is achievable most of the time. You know, you're going to have seasons, rhythms where you're all in and you just have to be. There's no way around it. There's going to be other times where your rhythm is totally chill and slowed down and all that. What's your ideal rhythm? Like if you had to actually go like, man, I would love to, do this much social stuff per week, do this. Like, what does that look like for you?
So I think for me, it would be one social event a week. That could be with friends. That could be, I was going to say that could be a date night with my wife, but I want that anyways. So
It's almost both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like a social event a week would be fine, a date night. And I don't need the social event.
Right.
I heard this the other day. I'm an ambivert.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been saying that forever.
Have you been saying that forever?
Yes.
Like, I think that, I lean or I trend towards introvert. But I think by just environment, I've been forced in some cases to kind of put it on, and I'm capable in those situations and not uncomfortable. I still don't necessarily exact energy from it, but
Sure. Right.
But yeah, so a social event here and there. I think if it was once a week, every week, I'd wear out.
Yeah.
Date night with my wife once a week, a 3-day getaway once a month. So a 2-night, 3-day.
Love that. I was thinking once a quarter, but I love that.
No, once a month, get away with my bride and go do something. And once a quarter, 2 weeks away.
Nice.
Once a quarter, 2 weeks away somewhere.
I think 8 weeks off a year is a really nice balance. I just said I don't say balance, but I think it is. It's a really good rhythm.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like, because what happens is people think, oh, it's too much time off. Well, and you end up getting more recharged, and you're able to come back to the fray and deal with it more, you know?
Yeah. So I think that would be, my ideal structure from a work and leisure rhythm there.
What about alone time? Just time spent by yourself. And that's a really important question for me right now, because I want more of it. And it's making me feel like, ooh, are you becoming too reclusive, or is that important? We obviously mentioned Jesus going to be alone with the Father a lot in the Bible. So it's not a bad thing at all. And I just don't know. What is that healthy
I think you're going to
rhythm?
hate my answer, and other people. I get up early.
Yeah.
So I'm up at between 5 and 5:30 most days.
Gotcha.
So I have an hour to sometimes 2 to read, pray. I'll sit in the hot tub by myself and just kind of have just a centering moment in the morning to kind of get my day started. So I don't feel like I crave away time, although when I get it, it's, me going away to go fish by myself or something like that. I feel like, that feels good. But it doesn't necessarily add a layer of recharging for me.
Yeah.
So that's my answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What are we talking about today?
Well, it's a good segue into problems in general, problem solving, coaching, not just coaching in other individuals, but coaching ourselves, coaching our children, and more or less from an angle of problem solving, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's been an annoyingly recurring theme in my household.
Well, what's a good example of what's going on, or what recently has happened?
Okay, super basic. My daughter in the shower refuses to get out of the shower unless someone brings her a towel. No.
Get your towel ahead of time.
No, but I can't reach it. Okay, figure that out.
Set it on the floor.
Grab it before you get in the shower. But I'm freezing and I'm standing here cold and wet. Then solve on the front end so that doesn't happen.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a really simple, but happened last night. And I was like, really? We can't. And to be fair, she's 9, right? But still.
Yeah.
Come on.
But you're also torn between, as a dad too, of I can also just hand her the towel, right? So you get caught between those two of but no, you need to actually learn how to, not put others out,
That's the easy path though.
Right.
And I'm upstairs trying to help my youngest, get ready for bed. And my middle, my Nora, is yelling from downstairs, I need a towel. And it's there's nobody down there but you, sweetie.
Yeah, but it's a good life lesson though, right? Be considerate of others it's one thing when you're oh, I'm just asking for a towel. But what you don't think through is that someone has to stop what they're doing, come walk all the way down. It's not being considered at all. So it's really important as a parent to teach those lessons in the moment. You often say to your kids, and I love this, that Stokes are problem solvers. That's what we do.
That's what we do.
I love that.
I want to, ingrain that in them. I was going to say something else, but I want to ingrain that in them.
You beat that into them?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And then I was like, no, that's not the right thing to put out there. Because that's not true. But I want them to own that.
Right.
As a mantle that this is what we do. Is that we problem. And Nora asked me yesterday, so I'm reading a book right now called Never Enough. And it's the subtitle is From Barista to Billionaire. And so Nora was asking me yesterday on our way to training last night. She goes, what's a billionaire? And I was like, okay. So we unpacked that. And she says, how do you become a billionaire? And I said, those who solve the biggest problems make the most money. And so I don't just want them to be problem solvers because it's the path to the most lucrative lifestyle. It is.
Right.
But it's the way you behave in life. It's the way you function with people and projects around the house. And yes, a business that you want to start up, but it's so many things. Problem solving is in school that they're in right now. It's in your hobbies and how you fish a hole. It's in the flies that you choose. It's in the way you ski a mountain, the way you drive to the hoop on a basketball court. Like, being able to look at something and go, this is my route, when somebody else can't see it, is a superpower.
Well, and it's both an occupational hazard and a function of living in society, right? It's all, meaning our kids have to build and maintain these skill sets because problems are going to keep coming. They are every day. Every day. I've not experienced, unless I think you run into a problem even if you lay in bed all day. You end up getting bed sores, right? You end up getting, like, literally your glutes will start getting sore and you start moving around. Like, you literally cannot even lay in bed all day without problems.
Yeah.
You have to be able to solve those really well. And what I think you do so well and lead so well with your family is staying emotionally neutral through that problem solving process, where most, like me, where I don't read the frickin' IKEA instructions and I just try to do it on my own and I'm getting pissed off the whole time. Well, not helpful.
Yeah.
Right. Stay neutral as best you can and logical. Right. It's the quickest way.
What about you and your family? I've never, as we kind of like, what are we talking about today? I was like, well, this is what's kind of recurring at the moment. Right. I was like, but I've never really thought about a framework of problem solving. Like, how do you approach a problem, I think, is maybe an interesting conversation in terms of the way you teach it, coach it, your kids, yourself. How do you approach a problem?
I think it's kind of ingrained in us a little bit just from our education of the scientific method. I think it's just kind of how we process problems and naturally how we go about it. It's organic to us. Right, to make a hypothesis, test a hypothesis. Did that make sense? I think Einstein says insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, right? So coming to some comprehensive conclusion that, that's not it, and finding the easiest path to, or the least resistance anyway, to the solution. So, but for me, like, I'm all about, in terms of problems, can a lesson be learned through it? And more times than not, you don't know what the lesson was until you look back on it and realize, oh man, there was a lot learned there. You typically feel dumb trying to solve the problem, but you're actually getting smarter. But for me, it's more or less eliminating repetition. And that's why I brought up the Einstein quote, is just eliminating repetition of the same mistake over and over and over again. And what process or what learnings can be inserted so that we don't have to go through this again. And so I never, when it comes to problems like daily, everyday, minutia type things, I think just getting shoulder to shoulder with our kids and helping them understand why it's important, right? Instead of just do it because I said do it, why am I asking them to do it? Like, taking the time to do that. Do I do that super well? No, I want to do it better, if I'm being honest. But that's more or less my approach, is let's find a way to not do it again.
Yeah, I think it's a muscle.
Sure. That's a great way to say it.
Right. I think it's something that you have to train. I don't think maybe some people have a disposition that enables it more so than others. I certainly observe that in my kids.
Yeah.
And so there's probably some natural bend to that, but I do think it can be trained. And it has to start with understanding that we're capable. Right. And that we can figure this out. And then stepping back.
Sure.
I think that we get too close. And when you get too close, meaning to the problem, to the issue, to the challenge, it's hard to see the bigger picture. And you get the solutions get lost. And it always surprises me when an employee brings something to me, or, my kids, or a friend even, they're like, man, I don't know what else to do about this. And pretty quickly, I can at least give an idea or two of, like, did you try it this way? They're like, nope. I'm like, well, try it. And I don't always know why that doesn't occur to people. And maybe it's just the muscle thing. They haven't had to figure it out. Being an entrepreneur, there's nobody else to figure it out.
Right.
So you're forced to figure it out, because if you don't, the consequences are going out of business, losing lots of money, heavy.
And more important, to build that network of individuals around you that you can reach out to, like your mastermind group, other individuals in your life that maybe you don't have that person to solve your problem, but shoot, you have a great, network of influences that can say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? So my point there is a lot of problem solving is asking for help.
Yeah.
Or looking for help,
It is, but you got to be careful, because that can be a crux. Relying on resources versus being resourceful.
Sure.
And so there's a balance in there to be had. So often my employees will come to me and say, hey, I'm having this whatever challenge. What should I do about it? And my response to them is what my process would be. I'd be like, well, to be honest, I'm going to have to do the same thing you would have to do. I'm going to have to go to YouTube and I'm going to have to Google it, right? I'm going to have to go to the help desk and ask a question. I'm going to have to log on with chat and run them through the issue and figure out if they have a technical solution. So you're just going to have to figure it out. And I will put it back on them, but give them the way I have thought about it, the way I would have to go about figuring out the solution. And so that's been my default response, unless I simply know, and for expediency, I'm like, oh yeah, I've dealt with that before, do it this way. I will help in those cases for sure, especially when it comes to employees, just for speed. But from a family, from a coaching, that we're going to wrap that into this today too, with the coaching piece of it. Trying to give them what the process would be to solve that.
Right.
So that next time when they have this problem, they're like, well, let me start with YouTube. Let me start with chat. Now, if they come to me and go, hey, I haven't really found a solution to this. I talked to chat already. This is what they said. I looked it up on YouTube. I couldn't really find anything. I've read through the help docs. I'm like, okay, this is legitimate. Like, we got a problem.
We actually have to fix.
Yeah. And so that's my hope, is that when employees bring me problems, they've gone through a few steps of trying to solve it before they bring it to me.
That's really smart. I really like that, because it also, as they walk away from the conversation, they go, yeah, that's the process I would have done too. Like they own it, like that was their original idea. That's really smart. It empowers them, but in a very passive way. It doesn't put them on their heels. That's smart. I like that. That's really cool.
Because I mean, I don't care if you're building a piece of furniture, you're trying to rewire a light switch, you're trying to solve a financial crisis in your business. Like, there's an element of just like going to places where that information might be available. Right. And educating yourself.
Yep.
Like, there's going to be, it's not just that the solutions occur to you.
Yeah.
Oh, I know how to solve this. Yes. Sometimes that happens. And maybe there's a pro tip in there that you can, I'll do this with my brain when I go to bed at night. If I have something that I'm not coming up with a solution and I've done all these things, I'm like, all right, time for me to go to bed, quit thinking about this. But while I'm sleeping, you need to solve this.
Yeah.
And work on it and come up with a solution that I can try tomorrow, but you're not allowed to keep me awake.
I like that too. And I actually think that's effective.
It's totally been effective.
What's your level of complexity when it comes to meaning, what are you attracted to? Some people love high complex or complex situations. Some people like solving smaller problems every single day.
Huh.
Where are you at? Do you like mapping stuff out? Like, whoa, I want to do this, this, and this. Whoop, that didn't work. Move this here. Do you like moving stuff around like that, or kind of in the middle?
Interesting question. I'm not sure I've ever thought about it. I feel like right now a lot of my day is kind of reactive. And so it's based on whatever the problem is that's being brought to me.
Sure.
And so that's kind of my default. But from a big picture standpoint, whether you're starting a business, like that usually begins with the problem.
Right.
Right. And you have an idea on creating a solution for that problem.
Right.
And so in that case, yeah, mapping out a problem. I see this. I'm launching a new product in a new segment of my business to our audience, and so I see a problem, and we're like, okay, we can create a solution for this. Another example of this that I see it. That's the other thing is I don't know if it's trained or it's natural for me, but I see it before someone else will see it. I can foresee in our business having an issue with some of the end of the tentacles, if you will, of our org chart being high frequency on turnover, low wage earners, and just having an issue of like there always being something there. And I've started to go down the path of like, can AI solve that? Can we? And it's not even an efficiency standpoint from a monetary standpoint. It's not going to be cheaper. But will it move faster with less error and create for the next tier up more bandwidth so that they're not having to interview, rehire for these positions? And it's like, there might be something there. And I just came across it yesterday, a solution that could work. And so I put it on my assistant to do some research, and I'll dive into it and do some research. So I can kind of sense like there's going to be a problem over there that we're going to have to fix. It's not a problem yet, but I see it coming.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to answer your question. I don't know if I've been faced with really big problems.
Yeah, sure.
To be fair.
So maybe
it's relative, right? What does that even mean? But maybe more on the smaller, let's knock them out. I don't know.
Sure. More.
How about you?
Operational basis. And I bring that up because I had this conversation years ago with a friend, and he said like his brain really does work similar to Bill Gates, and he's like, I'm not at all claiming that I'm as intelligent as Bill Gates, and he's like, and quite honestly, his brain is 10x what his brain does, but he just really moves toward complexity. He just loves really, really, really complex problems. So when he looks at economical drivers, he's looking at like, how can I impact an entire industry with some of these decisions, not necessarily just a product line or a marketing scheme or whatever else. So my brain doesn't go there. I don't think like I'm really, really, really attracted to geopolitics. We've talked about that a lot, and I can't get enough of it. I think it's so fascinating, but more so on a macro scale. It's not necessarily like I want to understand all the nuances and idiosyncrasies of how everything flows. I just want to know what the results or effects of it all are. And so that's been really, really cool for me. But to give you an idea, my brain, I've said for a long time, is all my ideas get to a 2. I don't have, for whatever reason, I have the ability to see what's right in front of me and way beyond it.
Interesting.
But bridging that gap, complete fuzz, no idea, all a mystery. You know what I mean? So I think why I asked that is I think there are people that really love complexity and would want to jump in at 3 and drive it to a 9, like figure out all the moving pieces to put it to a 9. And I say I'll take it to a 10 because I'll sell the hell out of it. You know what I mean? I love that part of it. That's actually my favorite part of it. But my ideas stop at a 2 every single time. So I'm always really intrigued by people that love the complexity piece because my brain just doesn't do it. It just doesn't.
That's fascinating. You're right. In observation, that's your ideas. You're like, I see this. I can see there's a problem there. We could do this, this, and this. And then it's like, I don't know how to get the rest done.
I don't. And then, but it's been amazingly life-giving because I've been meeting with a group of people now a few times, and we're starting to develop some of these ideas out. And we've had these conversations. That's what they do. They absolutely love taking ideas and putting them together and turning them into life. And I'm like, this is what I've been waiting for, you know? Whether or not it actually, turns into what I hope it turns into, that's another conversation, and I won't know for a while. But it's really exciting to be a part of people or part of a group of people that hear you out and go, we can do that. What? Okay, cool. So it's been pretty fun. So, yeah.
What role does coaching play in this for you? Like, Coaches that you hire, advice that you give, coaches that you've had over the years. How has that fostered or maybe handicapped problem solving, your ability to see around the thing, to see the solution, to see the next step?
That's a great question. And when we talked about what we wanted to talk about, something I threw out there was, who's your hero? And I think it's relevant for me right now because I just don't know who that is right now. And it's really bugging me. And to the point where I actually reached out to a therapist to have a conversation. I'm not even kidding. Like I was like, I really need someone to reach for, or some, like that, at least a persona, something to move toward. And
I'm not enough for you.
I just don't.
Kidding.
Well, and certainly
Appreciate the fake laugh, by the way.
Well, and I'm going to absolutely validate influence my life in so many big ways. In fact, when I was living at Seattle's Union Gospel Mission, you were running a surfboard company.
Yeah.
You got to understand that when I was in that position in my life, I did not have the same outlook. I did not have the same optimistic, everything can happen, everything is possible kind of an outlook. In fact, kind of quite the opposite. You were a huge inspiration, watching you grow and watching you live that life, live that out. And I never thought that I would be living the life we're living now. And I think in part it's because you inspired me.
Oh, stop.
So,
Well, I appreciate that.
I mean that. I'm not just blowing smoke. I really mean that.
Well, I wasn't searching for a compliment, but thank you.
No, but I think it's worth saying, and you need to hear that.
Well, I appreciate it.
You've been a huge inspiration for me. But so, for me, it's one of the conversations I've been having is I had two coaches before, all at the same time. I feel like I was overcoached at the time, meaning it was just too much opinion, too much consulting, too much like, I don't know what direction to move here. I felt more stuck just having too much of it. So I think coaching can be a really, really positive thing, a really good thing, and I think it can actually be too much. You can take on maybe too much opinion and too much to filter through. But that was my story. So I pulled out of it completely. And those coaches both had major influences on my life, but they also weren't technical coaches, right? And what I'm learning through my training is that there's differences between coaching, consulting, advising. All of them can be extremely important and relevant and helpful. But for me, it got to a point where it was so much consulting and so much advice that I didn't feel like I was growing. There wasn't a lot of self-discovery involved. And coaching that I'm learning is all about self-discovery. I personally love coaching others and being coached with a blend of coaching, consulting, and advising to some degree. I think it's important for me personally to really breathe and live who I am, and that's trying to breathe life in other people. And technical coaching doesn't really allow for that as much as it does allowing the person to breathe their own life into themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm giving you a lot of definition there, but for me, coaching has become incredibly important. And I think the way I approach my kids now is different. Not perfect at it by any means, but I think I lead with questions a lot more and try my best. I'm not perfect at it either, but try my best to be an empathetic listener. That I think has been the biggest takeaway from this training than anything else is really trying my best. Even as we're having this conversation, I found myself wanting to respond to something. I'm like, no, just listen to what he's saying. Don't just try to formulate a response. And that's something I wasn't aware of before. And so that's been really life-giving. But then I'll finish with coaching myself through a problem is paramount, right?
Yeah.
I shared that I read a book a long time ago where the guy said, and I believe this, that most of the problems came from the fact that I listened to myself instead of talked to myself. And that distinction between allowing that voice to control how that process goes instead of you stepping in and saying, no, this is how you're going to approach it. You are a problem solver. This is hard. Hard sucks. This is why most people quit. This is why I won't.
Yep.
Right? That is the voice that needs to continue coming into play And so coaching is everywhere for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that for me, coaching, as I've sat here and thought about it after I asked the question and listened, and I did my best to listen, by the way. But as I'm pondering, like, okay, how would I answer that question? I think that there was a few key inflection points that made me go, oh, okay, this is how you go about it, and I'm capable of doing it. I watched my dad do problem solve for his life. My dad was a forester by trade, by education. He worked for the U.S. Forest Service. He worked for private industry. But one of the things he realized in doing that was that he was never going to have what he aspired to. Loved being out in the woods, but he walked so much beautiful property that he was like, man, I want a piece of property of my own. I don't want a house on it. It may not be much, but it's mine. It's paid for. That's what he would say. And he was introduced to a gentleman that said, if you're serious, I'll show you how to do it. And my dad humbled himself and went in a totally different direction. Went from, I want to be out in the woods and walking timber, to on stages, leading people, speaking, like total fundamental shift, because it solved the problem that he had, is that he couldn't get to where he was wanting to go with the vehicle that he had. And so the solution was presented, but he still had to walk that out. So I observed that. Another one that I observed was growing up on the farm.
Yeah.
So on my mom's side of the family, we come from cattle, agriculture, and being on a tractor out in the middle of a field, a combine, and it breaks, you have a couple of solutions. You either figure out how to fix it, or you call somebody in and pay a lot of dollars to get to bring somebody in from the local dealership to fix it. And I remember vividly, for me, there was one time where a spring broke, and it was a spring that was holding an idler pulley, which is what gives tension to a belt. That's the spring-loaded pulley that gives tension to a belt, and the spring on it broke. And I was out there by myself, relatively, and I recognized what broke, and I got off the tractor and grabbed my multi-tool and snipped the end of the spring and bent it and got it so that it would hook back into the idler pulley, and fired everything back up, and sure as shit it worked. And when I got back to the truck to unload, which was where my uncle was, I hopped off and said, hey, here's what happened. Here's what I did. You just want to take a look at it, make sure that it's working at. And he walks around the tractor and looks at it and goes, as good as I could have done.
That's
and
awesome.
I was like, maybe I can do this.
Self-esteem.
Right.
Huge.
So there was a few inflection points for me where it was like, you're more capable than you think you are. Like, give yourself some credit, step back, look at the problem, what solutions are available, what tools do you have at your fingertips, and try something. Try and figure it out. And while those may not be the prototypical coaching moments, it is.
Yeah.
It's coaching through observation, through modeling. We've talked a lot about modeling. And so the next iteration, and there's other iterations of that for me, but my next iteration would be the mastermind group.
Yeah.
And I remember, speaking of the surfboard company and where I was wanting to go, and I remember it very clearly. We were at a house in Park City, and we were all there together, and they looked at me and they go, you can't get to where you're wanting to go with what you got. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So what do I do about that? Right. So, someone else to go, you're in the wrong vehicle. Like, where you're headed isn't where you want to be. And you either change now, or you're going to end up fighting the same fights and being in the same battles. It's coaching.
And a good problem-solving technique is don't prolong needed change, ever. That'll help you solve a lot of problems quickly.
in advance.
Yes.
Before they break.
But so many of us create more problems by prolonging something that needs to change now.
Yeah. And I think the issue isn't identifying the problem. That's the easy part.
Right.
That anybody can see a problem. Those that move the needle in life aren't the ones that see the problems. They're the ones that go, okay, yeah, no, I see that. We're going to do this about it. And I think sometimes bringing in a coach, hiring somebody, whether that's a marketing challenge, whether that's a relationship challenge, whether that's we're just too close to it sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just have to have somebody else come in and go, all right, here's what I got. Like, where do I go from here? And for them to go, yeah, you do have a problem. All right, let's talk about that. And ask the right questions. And it's usually in you somewhere.
Right.
You just didn't know how to access it.
How do you handle a problem when you're totally maxed? You're like, I don't have my ceiling is, I'm through it. I can't do this anymore. Like, how do you pull yourself back? Do you coach yourself in that moment emotionally through that?
Not well.
Thanks for admitting that. I think most people would say, thank you for saying that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when you're maxed, when you're out of capacity, like problem solving, as with many things in life, requires a certain amount of space. It requires the ability to zoom out, to zoom in, to go to the side, to look underneath. And unless you have the capacity to do that, it's I don't know that it's necessarily futile, but our brains kind of work with RAM, you know, from a computer, right? And if you're all the things are consuming all that RAM, all that memory to operate, you get errors, you get the pinwheel of death, right? I'm not functioning, and often I'll just have to put it down.
Right.
Like, it's like, okay, this one's not gonna be solved by me today.
Right.
Like, I don't have what it takes. My brain, and you can feel it. Like, I can tell I'm not thinking about this. Like, this seems so obvious. Like, this isn't that big of a deal. I just need to come back to it tomorrow.
Right.
And sometimes you just have to walk away.
And sometimes taking on problems fatigued really tests you in some ways, right? Tests your capacity, your capabilities in a stressful situation. We were up shooting on our lot, and remember Dave was going over a little drill, and he said, you really want to test yourself, do 3 sprints back and forth 100 yards, then come back and try to hit your shots. He goes, that's reality. That's the stress you're going to be feeling in that moment. I'm like, that is actually really good to stress test ourselves in problem solving too, because there are going to be times where we're maxed out and we don't have any capacity, and it doesn't really effing matter.
Yeah.
You're going to have to solve this problem now, right? Whatever situation it might be. But those can be real situations too.
Yeah.
You know?
In those cases, change your state.
Yes.
Change your environment. Go for a walk.
Right.
Like, you don't put the problem down, but you change your environment.
Right.
And if this has to be solved today, now, okay. I mean, sometimes you're right. The moment requires of it.
Right.
So go do something different. Go swim, go hike, for me, it's physical. You know, it might be go play video games for you, right? It's not about what it is. Although I do think scientifically going for a walk and like movement helps.
Right.
But go for a walk.
To Luke's point, attitude is everything in the situation you're in, regardless of being exhausted or not. If you can switch your mental state to and maybe an opportunistic type of a mentality, meaning you could pick someone up and teleport them into the same exact environment, and it could be a completely different reaction, right? Like, you could put somebody in the middle of the woods, boom, wake up and be like, oh my gosh, I'm in the woods. Where am I? One person freaks out, right, and wants to run out of there. The next person goes, oh, I've been waiting for this for months. This is like pure freedom, you know, and goes for a hike.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like attitude makes all the difference in those scenarios.
So I am a ski racing coach. We've talked about that.
Yep.
This is the end of the month of October for us, and we just finished up our fall dryland training. we call it dry land. It's essentially field work. It's agility, plyometrics, conditioning. But we call it dry land because it's off of snow. So it's dry. So we just finished up dry land training, and the head coach, as we were wrapping up last night, said, "Luke, anything you want to say to everybody?" And I said, "There's two things you have control of here in life: your attitude and your effort." And you're going to hear that a lot from me this year.
Yeah.
Your attitude and your effort, and the way you approach a problem, the attitude in which you approach it, matters.
Right.
Like, can we solve this? Yeah, I can solve this. I can figure this out. This is what I do. And telling yourself that, like, it does sometimes take self-talk.
Right.
You said, you mentioned it, coaching it yourself through this. It takes some of that. Like, okay, Luke, and this sounds so silly, but you are smart. You can figure this out. Think about it differently. What are you missing? What's not being said? What haven't you seen? What haven't you heard? What haven't you read? Go. And so it literally, I'll say that stuff to myself if I just get stuck, because I have to be like, all right, what are the different things? What are the resources that I have access to that would help inform me and or give me a light bulb in some way?
Yeah. That's training your subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And even if it's in the moment, like, well, I'm just talking to myself and trying to trick my brain into doing what I already wanted to do. Well, you're actually training your brain for the next time.
Yeah.
And then the next time.
Yeah.
And the next time. So that those questions don't even need to be conscious questions anymore. Your brain just automatically goes to, what don't I know? What do I need to look into? Like, it just starts doing it automatically. So it's really smart.
You build a trust in it, right? And it's almost, we talked about, another thing that we were maybe going to consider as our topic today is intuition. And the gut has a training of it too. Like, you can build a trust in it. It's same thing with your problem solving ability. Like,
totally.
And it starts with the little things, right? It starts with, oh gosh, I did figure out how to program the TV.
Yeah.
That's stupid. It worked. Oh, I did figure out how to lay concrete for the pathway.
Yeah.
Oh, I did fix the tractor.
Right.
And those might be big things, but it starts even smaller than that sometimes, right? Yeah, I was actually able to pick out the right outfit today that looked like it went together.
And be careful, really careful about, in contrast to positive self-talk, to not get stuck in negative self-talk, because that actually, they did a bunch of research and found that people that are happier, a lot less about being more positive, a lot more about being less negative, right? And not allowing little things, like, people don't think about it, or it just seeps in, like, oh, I suck at tennis, or I'm not going to go, play basketball with the guys. I suck at shooting, or whatever. What you're doing is you're just setting in stone into your subconscious that that's what you should always believe in the future, and don't even go there anymore. So I tell my kids, I actually said this, we had parent-teacher conferences yesterday.
Yeah,
which
we did.
Went extremely well. I was very, very proud of my kids. But I said to the teacher, I said, yeah, I tell my kids all the time, we don't say we're bad at something. We say we currently struggle with and live in true form. She looks down and she goes, Dad, you've never once ever said that to us. And I'm like, yes, I have. Thankfully, Brooke backed me up, and she's like, yes, your dad has said that. I've heard him say that. Well, come on, Liv.
Come on. Yeah.
But
that sounds like something Liv would say too.
Totally. Oh, she just looked disgusted too. Like, what?
No.
Never said that. But I have said it, and I mean it. It's actually something I learned from P90X, of all things. But I love it. I think it really matters.
Shout out to Tony Horton.
But he's right? That if you tell yourself, I currently struggle with it, you're just giving yourself permission to learn.
Yeah.
And keeping that pathway open. So, yeah.
All right, I want to pivot here for a second. I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I want to take a moment here, and I want to talk about coaching, like more specifically.
Sure.
I want to narrow in. You do some coaching. I do some coaching.
Yep.
Based on your skill set, what problems do you think your coaching will help people solve?
It's all about personal barriers.
Okay.
It's breaking through personal barriers. So what I mean by that are people that genuinely believe, I just kind of talked about it a little bit with the subconscious, but genuinely believe they don't have what it takes to either accomplish something that they want to set out to accomplish, problem solve for a problem. There's many people that just get in their own way, right? That we create our own walls and barriers, right? They're safety nets more than anything, right? They're comfort zones. I don't want to step out of this comfort zone. I don't want to go, I want to make $1 million, but I don't want to have to go sell the product. It's really uncomfortable for me. How do I do that? What am I supposed to say? I don't want people to think I'm an idiot. Well, having someone shoulder to shoulder with you to coach you through it. I love getting behind people like that. I love stepping beside people like that because I often say, if you don't have faith in yourself, borrow some of mine. So I think that's where my coaching, I think that's the special sauce, is giving people the additional confidence to take that next step in life that they maybe couldn't do it on their own. They might have family reasons, right? They might have meaning financial reasons. I can't take this step because I just know that my wife's going to be really stressed out about money. And I just know that if I do this, I'm going to make more money for us, but she just doesn't trust that. How do I get through that? I'd love to counsel people through that kind of stuff and coach people through that because all of it is extremely possible. It's just we get in our own way. And I'm passionate about that because that was true for me.
Yeah.
It really got in my own way for a long time. And I needed those people to come beside me and say, you can do this. And this is how we're going to do this, right? You're going to take that additional step, even though it's tiny and minuscule at times. It leads to those bigger steps. Very in line with what I really want to help people do what that teacher did in that video you sent me with the kids about short-term goals.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of times we cast these huge visions for our life, or maybe we get inspired by something and we're like, oh, I want that for my life. But they end up getting so excited about that uninformed optimism, they hit that informed pessimism, and it's a dead stop, right? Oh my gosh, I didn't realize what this actually means for me. Yes, I wanted this lifestyle, but I didn't realize what sacrifices I were going to have to make, that I was going to have to work weekends, and make phone calls for 3 hours every single night just to get my business up and running. I want to help inspire people that might hit those roadblocks and go, this is impossible, to realize that in bite-sized chunks, it's all possible. Setting short-term goals to reach that long-term goal is the point. It's not only possible, it's the point of it all, right? Is those learnings along the way. And unless you hit those short-term goals and learn about yourself through that, you're not going to get to the long-term goal ever. It can't happen. It's impossible. It's unreachable. But I want to help people set those expectations for themselves, not only what's possible, but make it probable through their actions. So anyway, that's wordy,
what's the next right step, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people have a hard time seeing that.
I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I do sometimes still. Even that's what I even talked about briefly today, is I need that figure to go, this is an obvious thing. It just doesn't feel so obvious to me right now. And having enough support around you to where things feel clarified, it's life-giving. It is.
Problems can be suffocating.
They can.
And to your question on, what how do you deal with it when you're overwhelmed?
Right.
Often, especially with personal challenges, like, it just feels like there's no way out.
Yeah.
Like, this is the way it's always been.
Right.
It doesn't have to always be that way, though.
It doesn't. And I'm reminded of sitting down with a counselor at Seattle's Union Gospel Mission when I was living there, and there's so much turnover. It was actually really hard on me. That's another conversation for another day. But just having so many people that you're going through a pretty vulnerable time in your life, and so many people in and out of your life. But it started to impact me, and I sat down with him, and I said, "What's the deal? Like, what is this? Like, what's the difference between people that make it and people that don't? What's the secret? I don't get it." And he looked at me, he said something very simple. I love, most wisdom in life is always like one simple word. And he said, micro choices. He said, most people don't realize that we overwhelm ourselves with these big life choices, and which are important. But he goes, it's just as important to make the choices in the morning between a bran muffin or a donut, a banana or a candy bar, right? Those little things that we permit ourselves to do, we know are not good for us, and we know are right. We talk about we're either we're either getting healthier or we're getting less healthy. We're either growing or we're dying. There's no in between.
Yep.
There's no neutral foods. They're either healthy for you or they're not.
Yeah.
And he's just said those are, choosing to not make your bed in the morning versus make your bed in the morning. Like little things that build that self-esteem, that confidence throughout the day, that make you feel a little bit more accomplished. He goes, those things add up big time.
Yeah. It's a willpower, which is another muscle.
Yeah.
And if you can build the willpower with, little things that seem insignificant, but it's like, oh yeah, I can totally make that choice.
Right.
You just build on it.
Right.
You just go take it a little bit further. Take a little bit further. I love that.
Physical exercise is a huge one. It's something that I need to get back in the rhythm of doing, but it's huge. If you have a regular workout schedule, whether or not it feels inconvenient for the day, it doesn't matter. After the fact, you will always feel like you can take on more problems. Period. You just do. You release endorphins. You actually do accomplish something in that moment, and you feel like, okay, bring it on. Like, what else can I do? Physical exercise is a huge piece of that. I think can be.
Yeah. No, I love that. I'm going to talk about myself here real quick, and then if you have any closing thoughts as we wrap this up.
Yeah. What's coaching for you?
So I think coaching for me, my best lane is operational business. Okay, so it's going to be operational marketing esque. So in the COO, CMO category, I have a really good ability to zoom out and see the whole playing field.
I'm going to add leadership in there, but I think that's part of that theme. But
yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that there's a leadership element, CEO leadership element that's in there as well. And I think I'm still learning how to transition from operator to CEO. Like, I think that's still something I'm learning. So I think that's maybe why I don't default to like, yes, I can help you with that, because I feel like I'm still grasping that transition.
I appreciate that. The only reason I mention it, and I think it's worth validating, is because I've watched you do it really well as the board chair for Family Lines.
Thanks.
So anyway,
I appreciate that.
If it's worth anything.
But yeah, I think that if a business has something that's in their way, they have a mountain they're trying to climb. That could be, how do I reach this audience? How do I go from 5 to 10 million? What's the path? How do I decrease employee turnover? How do I improve employee satisfaction? How do I, increase client retention? If they're in the vein of problem solving, which is why most people will reach out to a business consultant, business coach. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And I feel real confident in figuring out the puzzle. The puzzle is what's interesting to me. Is like, okay, yeah, I see the challenge. All right, let's try this piece. Does that fit? No, that didn't work. All right, that wasn't the piece. This piece looks like it could fit. Slide that one in there.
Right.
Nope, wrong color. All right, let's pull that out. Right, whatever it might be. But the figuring out, that's what I do. And so if you find yourself in a position where it's not aligning.
Yeah.
And it has to do with management, marketing, operations, leadership. I think I can serve well in those areas.
How many business? Well, sorry, I'm kind of going off on a rabbit trail here, but how many businesses do you think you could help stop hemorrhaging? Like, how much waste do you think is involved with decision making?
All of them.
I mean, because I think that for sure is your superpower, is like looking for waste, looking for bleeding, looking for like, don't do that. Don't cut that off right away. That, I think a lot of business owners have a hard time going, no, what should I do that? You know what I'm saying?
That's a great thought. Yeah. And, there's some situations where the answer is you're not going to quit hemorrhaging. You're just going to have to shut her down.
Oh, sure. But
Like,
that's just as important to hear
It's
that.
just
though.
as important, because instead of losing $500,000, you're only going to lose the 100,000. And I'm sorry, and that sucks, but it's better than the alternative.
Let's not give your house away.
Yeah. And so, I think that that's interesting. That's an interesting observation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts here as we put a bow on this?
Yeah, I think, like all of you experiences, problems and problem solving is going to be a part of our daily task as a human being and being a part of society. If you have kids, I'd say what I've learned along the way is, just be patient with them, be gracious with them, be gracious with yourself. Give yourself more time and space to solve a problem than you think you probably even need. I often rush through problems or try to find quick solutions, and they're just Band-Aids. Take the time to really solve the root of the problem, not just the symptom of the problem. And I think, just remind yourself over and over that you're learning and you're developing and you're growing, and it's all a part of the process. You're not stupid. You're not weak. You're getting stronger. You're getting smarter.
I love that. I think the only thing that I would add is move fast. Don't feel like you need to go, this is the solution, before you move.
Right.
You may not know that.
Right.
Like, this is potentially a solution. All right, let's go test it and fail as quick as possible.
Right.
So move fast. If you think you have an idea, execute. Find out whether or not it works. Don't be frustrated if it doesn't. Zoom back out. Look for the next right, obvious move, and try it again.
Yep. And don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it.
That's right.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right. Love you, dude.
Love you.
We're out.
See ya.
Thank you for tuning in to Processing Purpose. We hope you grabbed a few gold nuggets to take one step forward in your journey of life and business. Please remember to like and subscribe our channel if you'd like to get more content to help you build and grow everything around you. Make today your best day. Today is day one.